What is going on, y'all? Happy Thursday. Happy preseason. Preseason week 1 starting today.
Happy Thirsty Thurs. Happy Football Thurs. Preseason week 1 kicks off tonight. It's an exciting time. I have coffee brewing. I'm going to run and grab that really quickly.
Go for it.
I'm ready to stay up all night and talk shop. But yeah, what's going on, everybody?
Yeah,
Welcome
what's
to
happening,
Face
y'all?
Mask Fantasy.
Absolutely. So while you're going off getting your coffee, I'm going to give you a little shout out. We have the Knicks 2022 redraft draft kit available in the second link in the description of this video. 30 plus pages of free content focused on one QB, but it gives some Superflex tidbits in there too. Goes over pretty much every word. I'll give you it goes over pretty much every notable player in fantasy. And has, you know, a little blurb and sometimes a not so little blurb on these guys, digging into their value, where you should be drafting them, the things you should be thinking about when you should be drafting them, and maybe some analysis and some projections in there too. I cannot speak today, but
that's okay. I gotcha.
But go and download that if you haven't already. If you did download that when it first came out, download the new version that came out earlier this past week, because Nick did some revisions this past Sunday, added a few notes on some players, took away some players, one player, Tim Patrick, but there is a new version for you guys to download.
There was a net add of five additions, and Tim Patrick was a removal, unfortunately.
And we just got approved yesterday for the new members tier that we have. 99-cent tier for anybody who wants to be a member at the lowest level and just get 1 to 2 extra stream with us a week. You don't get some of the extra perks, like drafting with us and team one-on-one evals and stuff like that, but you do get 1 extra stream a week, sometimes 2, and 2 in season, I believe. So that is available for you guys if you guys are interested. But without further ado, let's get into this chat, yo. What's going on, Iron? What's going on, Hunter? What's going on, CXK? First like, everybody. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the breakdown about the draft plan. Any feedback or questions, absolutely let me know. And that will be a living document that continues to get updated throughout the preseason, which kicks off tonight officially. Yeah. The Patriots host the Giants, and what's the second game?
The Ravens and the Titans.
Okay.
Is that I think that's the second game, the Ravens and the Titans.
I'm looking it up right now. I know that the Giants-Patriots kicks off in about an hour. From, I believe, Gillette Stadium. So I'm just trying. Why do they make it so difficult to find?
Just type in preseason into Google. But yo, Iron,
that's what I did.
All right. Iron, I like that. I like that Henry pick as a second tight end. Honestly, there are going to be some weeks where he outperforms Dawson Knox. You're not going to be able to predict them, but I do like that pick. He should be a low end tight end 1, if not high end, and has a floor of a high end tight end 2. And considering how all the news that has come out about the Patriots, and with them definitively losing James White to retirement.
Salute
respect
James
to
White.
James White, absolutely.
Yep.
I think Hunter Henry's their number one target. If it's Jacoby Myers and Hunter Henry.
Probably. The tight ends will be heavily involved. And Henry is a little inconsistent, but should garner a very similar workload that he had last year. A lot of snaps and touches. You just took my guy.
I don't care.
I don't know. I thought about it. I looked at him too. Whatever. It's fine. It's the 14th round. But anyway, yeah. Solid pick taking Hunter Henry late in drafts. Mac Jones figures to rely on him a lot once again this year.
There might be a few more sightings of Jonnu Smith, but Hunter Henry should retain his role as the number one passing option, at least in the red zone for this team. I think that's a given.
Yeah, I mean they paid both of those guys a lot of money, so figure to see both of them involved in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, but yeah, bottom line is like that pick. And what's going on, Nemo? How you doing, man?
Yes, sir.
All right,
winding the members only draft down. There's a couple picks left, so some people might be referring to that if you see people talking about picks.
Right, and that was what Nick was talking about when he said that I just picked his guy. Yeah. So I stole KJ Osborne from him in the 14th round.
So, but to that point, we do drafts with our members. John, you kind of talked about the entry level, so to speak, perk that we now have available for live streams. But one of those additional perks, if you are interested in upping your membership with us, if you're not already, is the opportunity to play fantasy leagues with us. We have those set up. We have our first members only draft set up. It was a slow redraft draft. It was a ton of fun. It's been a ton of fun. We're in like the 15th round at this point out of 16, so it's winding down. Lots of trades of draft picks, like moving around the draft to secure, your preferred approach to building a team. It's been a ton of fun. That is one of the perks that do come along with a Face Mask Fantasy membership.
Of a certain tier.
Link
not
of a certain tier.
Not just all
I mentioned
memberships.
the entry level. Yeah, not just the entry level one is just the live streams. But if you are interested in expanding your membership with Face Mask Fantasy, that is one of the additional perks, is the opportunity to play fantasy with us, and your membership is essentially the buy-in for the league. So,
and I can honestly say, having one Face Mask Fantasy League pretty much under our belts thus far, it's going to be the funnest league that I think I've been in a long time. Be fun. The engagement is great. The format that we're playing in is great. Just the back and forth. I think we've had more picks that were traded, or at least equal picks that were traded, than people staying pat, if that makes sense. Basically, just a lot of movement. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Nick talked about yesterday on the members only stream. He put up a poll on Sleeper, and it was all answered by every league member within 3 hours. And I was the last person to put in a vote, so that's on me. But I mean, instead of waiting 3 weeks and having to chase people down for their input, it took 3 hours, and I was the weakest link. So the engagement is great. So I would recommend anybody that isn't involved in our leagues to get on that and join as a member, because it is a lot of fun, and you can ask anybody in here with a green name or an emoji or a member badge next to their name about it, and they can corroborate.
Yeah.
But we got preseason fast approaching in a couple of hours, and before it hits, I wanted to go over a few sleepers that we really haven't talked about yet that have been getting some noise in training camp. Or making some noise in training camp.
We could do that.
And if you haven't noticed, it's the guys that are in the thumbnail.
Yep.
So the first person that I wanted to bring up, Terrace Marshall. Nick kind of put me back onto Terrace Marshall because I had written him completely off But I just wanted to just throw a tidbit out there. 2019 Baker Mayfield. He threw to Jarvis Landry 138 times. And Jarvis Landry was the wide receiver 13. And he threw to Odell Beckham 133 times. And Odell Beckham Jr. was the wide receiver 26. And both running backs combined for 95 targets. So if you're going to just take that Baker Mayfield out of that offense and put him on the Carolina Panthers and maybe swap the target allocation from Odell to CMC and the running backs from that year, the 95 targets, to the number 2 wide receiver, somebody's going to have almost 100 targets, and it's a guy that nobody is drafting. Terrace Marshall. I'm not a huge fan of Robbie Anderson. I think most of those targets are going to go to a guy like Terrace Marshall, safety valve type, big slot type. Seems like the type of guy that will be highly targeted by a Baker Mayfield. And if that's the case, I think he can be a wide receiver 3, and he's been largely forgotten. And Nick put him back on my radar, and I just wanted to point out that 2019 target distribution, because I think it correlates to this year.
So I thought I saw a note, and I will admit, I was the first one to kind of trumpet Terrace Marshall a little while ago, but I feel like I saw something yesterday, an update, maybe it was Sleeper, that he was currently wearing a non-contact jersey at practice.
Okay.
So
I didn't see that.
I got to do a little bit more digging into that. But that was apparently the latest. So, okay, this was 2 days ago. Practicing Tuesday, so a couple days ago, with a red non-contact jersey. Suffered a leg strain in practice last week. Okay, here we go. So it's encouraging that he's back on the practice field even as a non-participant. Okay, so this sounds like it might be incredibly minor and precautionary. That the fact that he picked up a leg injury went under my radar, but I guess to that point, it probably wasn't very severe, which is good. So yeah, I'm not totally writing off Robbie Anderson just because he is the veteran in this offense. But from a fantasy perspective, he's not very appealing. So, and Marshall has actual promise that you can grow and develop if you're the Panthers as soon as this year.
Former second-round pick, 6'2", 205 pounds, ran a 4.4.
The draft capital is in his favor. The pedigree as far as where he went to school is in his favor. There's plenty of opportunity behind DJ Moore in this offense. I mean, he feels like a prime candidate to do more than his ADP is giving him credit for, especially on that Panthers team that is probably still not going to be very good. That defense is weak, I would say. They got off to a decent stretch last year. They had a really hot run as far as collecting sacks, and I think that led them to be maybe top 5 in the league. But they faltered at the end of the season and were not the same unit at the beginning of the season. So it's hard to put a whole lot of stock into that defense. So if they're struggling, then that means that the Panthers are going to be playing catch up on offense, which means they're going to throw the ball more.
Now that secondary did add JC Horn last year, so it might be improving a little bit. But
yeah, and he got hurt. Yep. I think early in the season. So him coming back will give them a boost for sure.
But you put me back on. You put Terrace Marshall back onto my radar, and he's just in a best ball league with one of my later picks. I could see myself going Terrace Marshall, or at least exposing myself to a little bit more Terrace Marshall than I ever thought I would. Again, 4.4 speed at his pro day for a 6'2" guy who should be playing big slot in this offense. And when you look at what Baker Mayfield does, he's never been a guy to target the deep threat down the field. Look at what he did with Anthony Schwartz. Look at what he did with DPJ. It was tantalizing with those guys, but it was never something you could rely on, and really only amounted to 1 or 2 boom games a year. I think where Terrace Marshall is going to be operating on the field lends itself more to where Baker Mayfield's going to be targeting guys on the field. So and Robbie Anderson said he was thinking about retirement, and that's
over.
Yeah, I just can't get behind him. I just can't get behind him. And Stephon Gilmore, Hunter, went to the Colts.
Yeah. He went into Indianapolis. Yeah, so Marshall's got a pretty good opportunity in front of him on an offense that might be throwing the ball a lot out of necessity. So I'm good with that. ADP on Underdog, I think, is on the other side of 170. Let me double check. Yeah, let's go Vienna.
Yeah, man, Vienna Vikings. What's their record right now?
Are they still undefeated?
Hey, Jinx.
No. I reject that. Underdog is crapping out for me a little bit right now. Here we go. Terrace Marshall's ADP is it's 212. I was right. It's on the other side of 170. It's on the other side of 210. So yeah, you can take him with your last pick. You probably don't need to take him in redraft leagues. Just keep an eye on him on waivers.
And his best comparable, for what it's worth, on Player Profilers, Sidney Rice.
Sidney Rice had talent.
Sidney Rice had talent and was derailed by injuries, but he had 1 year where he had 1,300 yards in 2019, wide receiver
Rice was
11.
A good player. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, just was a little injury, little snake bitten in the injury department. Sidney Rice was a good player, though. So.
Yo, what's going on, Alex? You finished your NCAA, the NCAA side of your second Campus to Canton League. I want to get in one of those. Started the NFL side today, and you started with Murray and Lance, and you're feeling pretty good. Hey, I mean, nice. Good start. So. Solid start.
I'd say that's solid.
And look at Nemo throwing out a yay. Love it. But yeah,
Nemo's not happy because we played it because it's a 2 quarterback league that we played, and he likes starting only one.
Well, there might be another league.
There might be another league forming. Yeah.
Yeah, with Xavier Dubs coming through and joining as a member. He wants to get involved.
So Xavier, if you're out there, welcome one more time. But Xavier joined up as a member just recently, and is absolutely interested in playing in a league if possible. So if anybody wants to double up, if any members want to double up on Face Mask Fantasy Leagues, that's something we can look into. But as far as the 2 quarterback league, I mean, I hear you about how, you only start 1 quarterback in real life. The whole concept behind Superflex is to magnify the importance of the quarterback position, like as it pertains to the NFL. That's the idea behind Superflex.
Right.
You play 2 of them because there are so many options. There's only so many to pull from as far as the player pool, but their importance is above anybody else's on the field. So the idea is, and maybe you already know this, but you're just like, from a practical perspective, it's like, no, screw that. I just want to play 1. That's the whole thinking, increase the importance of the position because of how important it is in the NFL.
And it does take some getting used to. I remember when the first time I moved from a 1 QB to 2 QB, I didn't know what the hell was going on and I think most of the people in our league didn't, to the point where we moved back to 1 QB eventually and never looked back. It does take some getting used to. You have to be exposed to doing some mocks, doing some best balls in 2 QB, just getting exposed to what 2 QB really means for your for a draft. It really messes with the ADPs for pretty much everybody involved. So it does take some getting used to, but I do like it because it does put more importance on the most important position in football. Yeah. To Nick's point.
It's easy to see guys in the 3rd and 4th rounds and think to yourself, these dudes are studs, but you have to ignore them. Yeah. If there's a QB2 on the board that's worth grabbing.
Yep. All right. Well, the next person that I wanted to bring up is a person that's been brought up that hasn't been brought up much on any of the live streams that we've done, but has been somebody that's been talked about over in Arizona, and that's Eno Benjamin.
He has been drawing some interest in camp. What's going on, AB?
What's going on, AB? What's going on, Alex? I mean, Chase Edmonds left behind 159 touches in 2021, and that was with him only playing 12 games. We know the injury risk that is James Conner. He's 27 years old now. As he gets older, his body's going to break down faster. We hope he gets through the full season healthy, but based off his track record, it's not something that's been in the cards for him. But even so, should Eno Benjamin earn that RB2 role, he'll immediately have some fantasy value.
Yeah.
We haven't seen what he can be in the pros yet, but looking back to what he was in college at Arizona State, 1,000 rushing yards and 10 rushing touchdowns in each of his last 2 seasons. That was 2018 and 2019. And on top of that, in 2018, 35 receptions for 263 yards and 2 touchdowns. 2019, 42 receptions for 347 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he is a little bit of a do-it-all back. Not the most athletic specimen in the world, but he's been coached up over the past few seasons, and the 3rd year back now, he looks like he could take the number 2 role and run with it.
Yeah, that wouldn't be that hard to believe. No disrespect to Darrell Williams, but I mean, this is a young player with fresh legs who's been on the team in the system now for a couple of years. Kingsbury has talked him up, has said positive things about him in camp so far this year about how his growth from the 7th round rookie to now, and the difference that he sees on the field. That's significant. Those are significant words. And we talk a lot about how we have James Conner listed as an RB1 from a pure upside perspective as a bell cow in that offense, but we've also admitted numerous times we're concerned about his durability and availability over the course of the season. If Conner has to miss a game, which if you had to, bet on Conner missing 1 game, that's a bet I would take. Eno's going to get a chance to at least mix in as in a committee with Williams. And if he shows a little bit more explosion, which is not the most inconceivable thing, talking about a young guy compared to a vet. How old is Darrell Williams at this point? 29?
No, he's not that old.
I thought he was older, or I thought he was a little older.
He's a little bit older, but I think he's only like 27. I think he's the same age as James Conner.
Okay, yeah, he's 27. For some reason, I might be thinking of Damian Williams, who I think is like 29 or 30. Yep. Sorry. Too many Williamses. Regardless, the point stands. 27 is still, that is that time where, yes, it's like it's an apex opportunity for running backs, but also it's like the end is closer than the beginning by a lot. End is closer. Yeah, the end is closer than the beginning is. So with Eno, again, the point stands about fresh legs and being in the system for 3 years now.
Yeah, and I mean, Darrell Williams, we've liked what he's done. He has, by my account at least, overproduced based on what his profile kind of promised coming into the league, or at least once he gained the number 2 role. I never thought he was going to be starting over CEH in any games, and he was last year. But he still only had 3.9 yards per carry in 2021, which is notable to me because the Chiefs went out and overhauled their O-line prior to last year, which should have led to any running back who is running for them having a better yards per carry than they did the year before. They went out in free agency and brought in Joe Thuney. They traded draft picks to acquire left tackle from the Ravens or Orlando Brown. They selected Creed Humphrey in the draft and right guard Trey Smith in the draft. they went out and identified O-line as a position of need. They got better players in there, and Darrell Williams had a worse yards per carry than he did from the year before.
Weird.
So, I mean, Darrell Williams at age 27, typically the age when we see running backs take a dive. Like it could be the year for Benjamin here. It could be the year for Benjamin. And is that who you're going to be taking next?
He's thinking about it.
Is that who it is, Alex?
Well, he's thinking about it. We know who he's taking. He's not taking Eno, but he is taking the guy that we just talked about in the back. That's also in that backfield.
D. Will.
Yeah.
Uncle Stunkus. What's happening, man?
What's going on?
Oh, man, love that name. How much upside does Rashad Bateman have with the rumors of the Ravens going back to a run-heavy offense and with him having a tough wide receiver schedule in general?
Plenty of upside.
Yeah, I'm not worried about them going back to a run-heavy offense.
Plenty of upside.
I'm not worried at all.
Nah, he'll be fine. Even if the Ravens throw it, 500 times instead of 600 times, or maybe even 450 times instead of 500 times. It's very condensed. The targets are very condensed to basically two players. It's Andrews and Bateman. Bateman might have a tough schedule, but also nobody else in the Ravens receiver room comes anywhere close from a talent perspective to Rashad Bateman. He will be hyper targeted in this offense as the X receiver, and the Ravens seem to be very confident that he can succeed as a team's number one option. We saw glimpses of it last year. Now he has the chance to be the guy on what should be a good team, a good offense with plenty of scoring opportunities. Yeah, Lamar's gonna do his thing and run around, but also on very limited. We've seen Lamar lead the league in passing scores before. Yes, on incredible efficiency, but he still did it. So this is an offense that can put points on the board. Bateman's going to be a red zone target, a target hog, possession receiver, you name it.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson had his MVP season while they were run heavy and led the league in touchdown passes while they were the most run heavy team in the NFL 2 years ago. Or was it 3 years ago now? Regardless, if you look at what Rashad Bateman did towards the end of the year, once he really started getting heavy snaps and was fully healthy from his groin issue, early in the year he was getting relatively heavy snaps, but he was still working his way back from the injury and getting acclimated to the offense. Towards the end of the season, from week 14 on, week 14, wide receiver 18. Week 16, wide receiver 32, 12.6 fantasy points. Week 17, wide receiver 31, but still 12.8 fantasy points. You're not, wide receiver 32 and 31, not stellar, but you're not getting mad at 12.6 and 12.8 fantasy points from your wide receiver, and he will have a much higher ceiling than that moving forward. I really like Rashad Bateman. He should be a rock-solid wide receiver 2. Do I think he's going to be a wide receiver 1? No. He will have wide receiver 1 weeks, but I think by the end of the year, he'll be a rock-solid wide receiver 2. And, he could be DJ Moore-esque. Right? As a guy finishing wide receiver 19, wide receiver 22, somewhere in between there, maybe upside for wide receiver 16. Not going to be a top 12 guy, but should absolutely be a rock-solid wide receiver 2.
1,100 yards, 5-6 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the upside for more touchdowns.
Right.
With the upside for more touchdowns specifically.
I think he's looking around 1,000-yard, 5-touchdown floor.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no concerns, man. No concerns, and love the name. Love the name. Alex, and I mean, I'm guessing it's gonna be Eno or D Will, but you are up next, so make that pick.
Take your Darrell Williams, Alex. You're not fooling anybody.
Yeah.
You're not fooling anybody.
Did we miss
but
anything
anyway,
in the
Eno.
chat?
But we like Eno as well. Sorry,
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Who else we got as far as some sleepers?
I almost don't want to talk about this guy because I'm still in a draft with y'all, and one of y'all are gonna snipe me on this.
We all know who these guys are.
So Josh Palmer. Josh Palmer had some stellar news come out about him over the past few days, specifically.
Yes, he has.
But looking back to last year, in games where he had above 60% of the snaps on the field for a given week, wide receivers week 14 he was wide receiver 16. In week 16 he was wide receiver 21, and in week 18 he was wide receiver 32. So 2 mid to low end wide receiver 2 weeks and 1 solid wide receiver 3 week in weeks that he had above a 60% snap share. And in the team scrimmages that we've seen that were at least reported on by everybody on Twitter, one really stuck out to me. Through 2 possessions, the reception count in a scrimmage that was just held a few days ago, where Mike Williams 4 receptions, Josh Palmer 4 receptions, and Keenan Allen 1 reception. Jalen Guyton didn't get a single snap with the ones. Now, earlier on in the offseason, it was a question whether or not Josh Palmer was gonna get the number 3 role, and if it was just gonna go to Guyton like it was last year, and Palmer was gonna open the year as the number 4 wide receiver. It looks like he's the number 3.
Yep.
He's the number 3 in a insane Justin Herbert-led offense with targets to go around, and with Guyton not getting a single snap with the ones in their team scrimmage, the writing's on the wall. With Keenan Allen being a 30-year-old wide receiver at this point, he hasn't slowed down at all, but he will eventually. And when that happens, Josh Palmer is the guy that's going to fill in specifically for Keenan Allen, who has been one of the safest wide receivers by target concentration in the NFL over the past few seasons. And that's not going to go anywhere with Justin Herbert being their number 1 quarterback moving forward. I really like Josh Palmer, man.
Yeah, it sounds like he has pushed Jalen Guyton completely out of the regular consistent rotation. I mean, he flashed at the end of last season. You saw it in those last 8 games. He really started to come on strong, come into his own. What's his draft? Was he a 3rd round pick?
He was a 4th.
Okay.
Maybe a 3rd. I'm looking that up right now. He was in the 3rd. It was in the 3rd.
3rd round. So, I mean, the day 2 draft capital, I would say, is absolutely in his favor. He was damn near a top 75 pick, 77th overall. I mean, that's good investment for a team to put, to make at any position. 6'1", so I'd say he's got ideal size. And in limited playing time last year, caught 4 scores.
Apparently he's been right up next to Keenan Allen, bringing him Keenan Allen's own tape and being like, all right, how did you do this? How did you do that? Pretty much ever since he came into the league. So his goal, Josh Palmer's goal, is to learn as much from the best route runner in the league in Keenan Allen over the past few seasons before Keenan Allen leaves. So Josh Palmer is a great dynasty stash or target or any, like, he's just go out and anything. Try to acquire Josh Palmer in dynasty.
He's good for redraft. He's good he'll be good this year.
Yeah, that too.
He'll be good this year.
Yeah, no arguments there. I'm just saying I think he's an even better stashed for Dynasty for this year. He might be more of a wide receiver 3, given that they have 2 incumbents ahead of him. But he could have wide receiver 2 upside as soon as Keenan Allen goes. Low end wide receiver 1 upside based on the offense that he's playing in. I like him in all formats. In every kind of league you're playing in.
Attached to that offense with that quarterback, where's his ADP?
You tell me, higher, ADP whisperer.
Yeah, hardly a whisperer, more just a looker-upper. Palmer's ADP is 127. Okay, so, I mean, you have to spend a 10th or 11th round pick on him, so it's not nothing. But, I mean, at that point, you are looking for upside plays anyway, and, I mean, that's Josh Palmer. I'm just going to look. If you have anything else to say, go for it. I'm going to look and just see who's getting drafted like around him, regardless of position.
Nah, just shout out what's going on, Cajun Spice. I didn't see what your message was. You retracted it, but welcome. What's going on, Brandon?
What's up, Cajun? What's going on, guys?
Hines will be good this season in PPR leagues with Ryan throwing him the ball. Absolutely.
Yep. Not even
absolutely. What's going on, New Jerusalem?
So Palmer, yeah, I mean, just looking at the guys with an ADP starting 120 or later, Dameon Pierce, Mecole Hardman, Isaiah Spiller, Rachaad White, Cole Kmet, Kenny Golladay, Devontae Parker, Darrell Henderson. Then Palmer's going. I mean, you can make an argument rather Palmer than all those guys.
Yeah.
Julio Jones's ADP has skyrocketed 15 spots ahead of him. I'd rather have Palmer than Julio at this point, I think. Call me crazy.
Yeah, I think that's skyrocketed because you had a little bit of an injury scare with Russell Gage as well.
Yeah.
Don't care. Minor injury.
And then just after him, after Palmer's, Madison, Irv Smith, Michael Gallup, Jacoby Myers, who I like. Palmer probably has a little bit more upside. I will say I'd rather have Jacoby Myers just because his role is a little bit more full-time. Palmer, I think he's getting boost. The Justin Herbert effect is affecting that ADP, I would say, just a little bit. But I mean, Jahan Dotson, Christian Watson, Pat Freiermuth. Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have Palmer. So the only guy in that range who it's like I'd rather have is probably Jacoby Myers, who is way more boring than Palmer. Although he has like 80, he has 80 catch upside. Palmer doesn't when everyone's healthy.
Right, but if somebody were to get injured ahead of him, he's basically a wide receiver 2 at that point.
If anything happens to Keenan Allen or Mike Williams, Josh Palmer is a top 15 option.
Yeah,
that week.
Yeah. No, I really like Josh Palmer.
He's gonna be good. Palmer. He already is good.
Yeah. Yeah, he really is.
Four touchdowns on 33 catches. He's attached to a great offense. That's what that tells me.
And you look at the other offenses that had, wide receiver 3s that were high octane to the extent that Justin Herbert and the Chargers offense will be. Joe Burrow, you're looking at Tyler Boyd. Josh Allen, you're looking at Gabe Davis last year. Both of whom had value last year. So he could be on Gabe Davis's level, what Gabe Davis was last season, this year. And if anything happened in terms of an injury, again, to Nick's point, top 15 wide receiver upside there for a little to no investment based off where he's being drafted. So,
yep.
Yeah. Yep. And then another guy I wanted to bring up, and I'm just going to bring him up and let Nick talk about him, KJ Hamler.
Yeah, so what's the latest on him as far as his return from the ACL? It sounds like he's doing all right.
And we'll get to the chat right after this.
And then we'll get to the chat. Yeah, I mean, he's, if healthy, and I haven't seen anything as far as setbacks or anything like that. I know a couple weeks ago he had a press conference, which was pretty like for him. I have to imagine it was pretty emotional. He talked about what he went through last year as he was going through the injury. He lost his grandmother. The whole other topic of conversation. But I think the long story short is, first of all, I'm rooting for a guy like this. And second of all, I think he's going to be incredibly motivated this year. So just intangibles there that I guess you kind of can't always quite put on paper, but are things that are always fun to try to identify. But, you know, from the what you can take from what's on paper perspective, I mean, Tim Patrick is now in the situation that KJ Hamler was last year. You hate that it happens, but it did. So hopefully Tim Patrick can come back, return to full form, but that's going to have to wait until 2023. There is a wide open opportunity for the team's wide receiver 3 role in Denver, and it has to be Hamler's to lose. He's gonna be this offense's deep threat. He's gonna go vertical for this Broncos offense.
Yeah.
And give them an element of speed that Jerry Jeudy can bring, but Cortland Sutton is a little bit more of a possession guy. So it adds another layer. It adds another element. That and we know Russ throws a great deep ball. So Hamler just kind of crab walked himself into probably 100 targets with some upside for more, because this
I don't know
offense
about that,
is,
man. 80? 100? I don't know. Because if you look at this on the Seahawks, yes, we're projecting Russell Wilson to throw a little bit more than he did on the Seahawks. But outside of the top 2 wide receivers and the tight end, we really didn't see much offensive explosion from the third guy, who was often a speed guy. We had Freddie Swaim out there. We had Dwayne Eskridge out there. But the third guy in the offense, who is usually a speed guy who was opening up routes down the field, had some boom weeks in there, 2 to 3, but was never really a week-to-week starter.
Where did Eskridge go in the draft?
He was a second-round pick, man.
Eskridge?
Eskridge was a second-round pick.
They just don't know what they're doing. But so was Hamler, to be fair. Hamler was also a second-round pick. So
I do not see
Hamler
getting 100 targets. 80 is definitely within the realm of possibility and still makes him a viable fantasy option, considering with a guy like Hamler, it only takes him to catch 1 or 2 balls for him to make your fantasy day, because of how far down the field he's getting targets, and the possibility for an end zone target is very high with a guy like him. But he's not going to get 100 targets.
I think he can get at least 90 to 95, because Tim Patrick got 85 targets last year. And yes, Jerry Jeudy missed some time, but this offense is just going to throw more. It's a combination of 2 things. We've not seen the Broncos quarterback play be this efficient since Peyton Manning, and we've not seen Russ with a situation where he's going to have an opportunity to throw the ball 650 times. Did he do that in Seattle? I actually have to look that up.
I do not think so. No.
Did he ever throw it? He never threw it 600 times. Never. His high water mark was 558. Yeah, he's going to throw it 600 times. And that's great for Sutton and great for Jeudy. And
great for Alberto, and great for Greg Dulcich, and great for Javonte, and great for Melvin Gordon. You have to remember there are other targets in this offense. They're not going to all go. It's not going to be like last year where Jerry Jeudy was injured and Cortland Sutton wasn't reliable because he couldn't mesh with his quarterback, so they were throwing to Tim Patrick a lot. I don't think it's fair to just put Tim Patrick's targets straight onto a Hamler. I think he's going to top out at around 80, though.
Hamler's getting 100 targets.
I would bet not.
I'll take that bet.
If nobody gets injured, I will bet you that. If everybody stays healthy,
there's no caveats. 100 targets.
We'll talk.
Yeah, we'll talk. Anyway, I have high expectations of this offense from a perspective of they have a real quarterback now. Sorry, Drew Lock. And they're going to throw the ball with success to all of their guys. And Hamler's going to sprinkle in as this team's wide receiver 3 with an opportunity to take the top off. Without Tim Patrick, I think he's set up for a sizable role. He's going to have a solid year.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously he has to stay healthy. He missed it the entire season last year due to a torn ACL, but he's over that now. He's healthy now. So yeah, giddy up.
I'm just waiting for Alex to make his pick. But New Jeruz, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, what's going on, guys?
Raul Morales, what's happening? Did we discuss Brandon Ayuk? Nah, but we can.
We can. We're gonna run through. Well, there's only that's the only thing that I see above it is Nemo said that Deshaun Watson has released a suggestion for
that's just
for a new
weird.
suspension.
And it's kind of just like, all right, guy. All right, guy.
Would accept an 8K. I love how, like, who is this dude who has the audacity to be like, this is the punishment I would accept? Like, all right, man.
And this guy think he is Pablo Escobar building his own prison? Like, nah, bro, get out of here.
And he's fining himself. He's like, I will pay a $5 million fine.
Oh man. Yeah. All right, Deshaun.
What a hell of a bargaining chip.
All right, Deshaun.
I will fine you I will pay a $5 million fine. All right.
Yeah, because look at how much money I got guaranteed. That's like all right, cool.
Yeah.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
He's doing it.
But Ayuk, I mean, I like Ayuk a lot. Ayuk should mesh well with what Trey Lance does well. We've seen them hook up a couple of times in camp, and they've been some highlight reel catches in there. Nick and I like Ayuk.
Yeah, I mean, this is easy for me. He flashed as a rookie. What do you get, like 800 total yards or something like that? 5 touchdowns. I might not be totally correctly remembering that, but as a rookie, he did
750 and 5 touchdowns. Yep.
Okay. This was his rookie year when Deebo Samuel missed extensive time, George Kittle missed extensive time. Brandon Ayuk's ADP shot up into the 4th round last year in redraft, which was unfair relative to that circumstance, and it turned out to snakebite people. 1, because the play on the field wasn't exactly where the cost was, and 2, he ended up in Kyle Shanahan's doghouse, I think like 2 or 3 times last year.
Right.
What the first instance was he's still learning how to be a pro. So there was a red flag on Ayuk last year, straight out the gate. Guess what? He still ended up duplicating or replicating his numbers from his rookie season, despite all that.
Now, in 5 more games played.
Sure, but he still put up the numbers. Mm-hmm. And, well, 5 more games played, but also would have played more games had he not been a bonehead and ended up in the doghouse.
Well, he played 17 games, but yes, he would have been more involved on a game on a week-to-week basis.
Guy. He was running behind Trent Sherfield is that who I'm saying?
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Like, yeah, he played, he was active, but he was running half the snaps he should have, if that. Like, there were 3 or 4 games where Trent Sherfield was the other receiver opposite Deebo. Again, because Ayuk was in the doghouse. I think there was a game where he was active and he played 0 snaps. It might have been week 1 or week 2. Yeah, I'm almost, maybe not 0 snaps, but like he threw a goose egg in there when he was active. So it was a weird season, and he still put up similar numbers to his rookie year that made him, that resulted in him being a 4th round pick the following year. Now his ADP is in the 8th round, like say 40 picks cheaper. So just on a value perspective, just on a cost perspective, I love Brandon Ayuk this year. And all of that nonsense is, we hope, seemingly behind him. And it probably is, because if it wasn't, the 49ers would have done something more significant at wide receiver if they were throwing up a white flag on Brandon Ayuk. They didn't. So yeah, wheels up.
Now, looking at his game logs and the snap shares that he was receiving last year, he was actually utilized. He was on the field for more than 68% of the snaps in every game, with the exception of the first 2.
All right.
So yeah, he might. I don't know. I don't know how to explain that. But from week 8 on, instead of being a 70% snap share guy, he was a 90 and an 85% snap share guy.
All right.
For the rest of the year.
So the vibes got better as the season went on.
He got about 15% more snaps, and an uptick in about 15% more snaps when he got out of the doghouse, which amounted to a lot better of a fantasy outcome on a week-to-week basis for him moving forward.
Okay, so there you go. And to that point, the 68%, I wonder in those guts, like week 4, week 5, week 6, I guess in this specific scenario, I'm less interested in the snaps and more interested in the routes run. Like, was he out there just kind of like being a blocker, or not being used? I don't know the answer to that question. All I know is I distinctly remember he was running, but there were multiple games where Trent Sherfield was the guy running ahead of him for the offense. That is not going to happen again this year. And now you can have him 40 picks later. Plus, he's a good player. We saw his dynamic skill set. It's not quite to the level of Debo's, but it's there. And this is going to be, this is already an offense that excels on, the art of misdirection and smoke and mirrors and all of that. Trey Lance is just going to add another layer to that. I think it's going to help Brandon Ayuk.
And his yards per reception went up from year 1 to year 2, 12.5 year 1, 14.8 year 2. So that bodes well too.
Go.
So even if he only gets another 85 targets like he did in 2021, he should be able to replicate the 850 yards and 5 touchdowns and has upside for a little bit more. I would project him to be around 950 and, 6 to 7 touchdowns. Somewhere in between that 5 to 7 touchdown range for Ayuk. Feels about right, and that would be a high-end wide receiver 3 finish with some wide receiver 2 weeks in there for sure. So, yeah, I like Brandon Ayuk. He's never going to be the number 1 target in this offense, but he should still eat.
Yep. Should be good.
And Cajun Spice, those are 2 good guys to have on your taxi squad. 2 good guys to call up there in Palmer and Collins. I would like to have that, be in a position to have to make that decision. Those are 2 good stashes to have a wide receiver, so solid.
I'd be willing to bet that both of those guys come off of maybe your rosters are a little thinner, or not thinner, but like, how many guys do you roster? Is it like 20 instead of maybe 26, 27? Regardless, I would think both of those guys find their way onto your main roster as soon as this year. As soon as like mid-season.
And Nemo, the Saints have a chance to be the first team to run the Bird Gauntlet, beat all 5 Bird teams in the season. Hasn't been done yet. That's a crazy stat.
There you go. Beat all the Birds. Who is that? The Eagles, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, the Falcons, and the Ravens.
Yeah. All right.
They can beat the Seahawks. They can beat the Cardinals. They can beat the Falcons. Depending on if the games are at home, like they can beat the Eagles and the Ravens. If they're on the road, those are the 2 tougher games up there. The Cardinals would be tough too. Their offense is good. Their defense is good. The Falcons, they can beat. I guess I was like, the first thing about the Cardinals that came to mind was just how awful they looked at the end of the season and the playoff loss, but that doesn't necessarily translate to this year. So Falcons, they can beat. Seahawks, they can beat. The other 3, depending on where they are, if they're at home, they can win that game. Tougher matchup on the road, but we'll see.
And Alex, do you value offense and QB more than the player when it comes to the wide receiver 3 range? I'm going to use Claypool, who's in the next comment below it, to kind of illustrate my point and try to answer both questions.
There you go.
Claypool, by talent, based on talent, should be a wide receiver 2, but because of the offense he's in, he's more of a wide receiver 3 who could be a wide receiver 4. So I think it's a little bit of both. I know that's not a rock solid answer for you, but I mean, a lot of wide receiver 3s have the talent to be wide receiver 2s, but are just in lesser offenses. And then there are the wide receiver 3s that should be wide receiver 4s, but are in good offenses. All else even, unless we're talking about one of the top 4, 5, 6 offenses in the NFL, if they fall outside of that range, I'd rather go off of the wide receiver talent than the overall offensive ranking. That's kind of how I look at it. But how do you look at it, bro?
It's a combination of something that's easy to identify and something that's, or not easy, I shouldn't say easy, something that feels a little bit, I guess, easier to predict, not so much easy to identify. One thing is on the easier side, one thing is on the more difficult side. It's a combination of opportunity and upside, right? If this happens, then this guy steps into this huge role. Or this guy is flying under the radar because he's not flashy, he's boring, the offense maybe isn't that great, but he's their top option. My first thought comes to a guy I already mentioned. We were talking about Josh Palmer and who else we would rather have in that name range. There was only one. Jacoby Myers has an ADP of 134. And I know that's maybe a little deeper than the wide receiver 3, but I think the point applies here. He's not too much cheaper than, or he's not too much cheaper than, say, a Chase Claypool, maybe by 20 picks or so. Jacoby Myers is boring as hell, but he caught 80 balls last year. And he can be had 13 rounds into a draft. So, and that offense isn't that great. But I know based off of last year, Mac Jones has some built-in rapport with Jacoby Myers. And that's confirmed by an 80-catch season.
Yeah.
So there's something so I'm looking for opportunity, right? Looking for guys who I feel like have good opportunity, who you can have late. And Amari Cooper, I feel like, is a more high-profile example of this. Amari Cooper's ADP has plummeted because of the Deshaun Watson situation, but he's still far and away that team's best pass catcher. He is going to be hyper-targeted, and you can have him in the 7th round, whereas the past 3 or 4 years, yes, the offense was better, but you had to get him in the 3rd or 4th round.
No, I look at some wide receiver 3s here and think all right,
opportunity.
Elijah Moore might be a wide receiver 3 based off of he's a wide receiver 2 based off of talent, wide receiver 3 because of the offense, versus a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster, who is maybe more of he's kind of a weird mix of both, but we like him because of the offense he's in. Robert Woods, he's the number 1 in his offense. We don't expect that offense to be a great offense, but he's just the number 1. So it's a weird mix of both. I can't really say definitively. It kind of goes on a case-to-case basis. Alan Lazard, another one where he should perform. Yeah, I have him at least in the wide receiver 3 ranks because he's projected by me at least to be the number 1 target for his offense with a good quarterback. But then you have right next to him, for me at least, an Adam Thielen type who's the number 2 in a lesser offense, but is a much more talented wide receiver. It's really on a case-to-case basis. It's really hard for me to say one or the other. And I know that doesn't answer your question.
Good offenses are good to target if you have the guys that get used in that good offense.
And in the bad offenses, you're looking at the guys who are the number 1 targets in those bad offenses. Yeah. So it's either
Guys perform in bad offenses too.
Yeah.
Fantasy points get scored in the 32nd ranked offense as well. Obviously not as enticing, but they happen.
As far as end of the year, where will Claypool rank? I mean,
should be a wide
receiver 3.
Should be a wide receiver 3.
A low end wide receiver 3. He has the talent for more, but that offense should struggle through the air with the quarterbacks they're dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen Trubisky for a while. The last time we saw him, it wasn't good. It's hard to project any of these Steelers receivers because we haven't seen Trubisky for a little while. Like, did he really improve last year? Like, behind the scenes, carrying the clipboard as a backup? Did he take some strides, some steps forward? I guess we'll find out.
He rehabbed his value. I don't know how much better he got as a quarterback.
Well, yeah. I will say, as it pertains to Claypool, his ADP makes him worth a roll of the dice.
Yes.
Because he did perform like a wide receiver 2 as a rookie. There was just severe touchdown regression for him last year with 1 touchdown scored. Or 2? 1 or 2.
I think it was 2.
If he gets back, and he scored 11 as a rookie. So split the difference and say he's able to get 5 or 6. Yeah, now you're talking about a guy who it's going to be a little volatile. A lot of receivers are, but in good matchups, you can fire him up as your wide receiver 3 with some decent confidence. He's much cheaper than Deontay. He's more expensive than Pickens. So, if you would prefer to take the rookie who's got a little bit more, the unknown potential makes his cheaper ADP a little bit more tantalizing. I can understand that. But getting Claypool somewhere around pick 95, somewhere in the 95 to 100 range, that's fine. You're taking shots on upside at that point anyway. And he showed he has some upside. I'm fine with him at cost. So, yeah. I would say he's got high-end wide receiver 3 upside. But the offense is not the most spectacular.
And I would agree. Uncle Stunkus, how early is too early to draft Ramondre Stevenson with the news that the Patriots are open to trading Damian Harris? I don't think they are. I think that's a bunch of just reporters making reports up. Look at all the news that's coming out about the Patriots. Their offense, everything about their offense is doom and gloom right now. You think with that news coming out, with those deficiencies being shown right now through practices and minicamp and all that stuff, and maybe through preseason as early as and like now, because I think the Patriots are playing right now, you think they're going to be trading away the guy that gave them 13 touchdowns on the ground last year? No. It just doesn't make sense. Also, with losing James White again, respect to James White, they're not going to trade away Damian Harris. This NFL teams don't play fantasy football with their players like that,
especially their running backs.
No, and especially the Patriots that like running a bunch of running backs on a week-to-week basis. They're not trading Damian Harris.
No, there's no incentive for them to, because what are they going to? It's a contract year for him. What are they going to get for him? A 5th round pick? You might as well just...
No, not even that. It's a running back.
Right. So that's why at first I said a 6th, maybe, but he's young.
A 7th.
So yeah, maybe you can package him with a 7th and get like a 5th, but yeah, they're not going to get it. That's a loss for them. When they spent a 4th round pick to draft,
soon to be 26 years old, he's not even that young anymore.
I'll tell you right now. Who asked the question? Was that Uncle Stunkus?
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now. How high is too high to draft Ramondre Stevenson? It's officially too high to draft him now because his ADP was already ahead of Damian Harris's. I sent a tweet out earlier today that first of all, salute to James White. I'll repeat it, or I'll reread it here. The guy you should be targeting now, especially with his ADP, is Damian Harris. If this further bumps the Ramondre ADP up, last time I saw on Underdog Fantasy, Ramondre's ADP is like 131. Harris, or not 131, like 131. Harris's is around like 133. That doesn't sound right, but let me take another look. Sorry, that's too low. On Underdog Fantasy, Ramondre Stevenson's ADP is up to 95.
Too expensive. What's
too
Damian
expensive.
Harris's?
Sleeper just shit out on me again. Hang on. Ramondre's ADP is 95. Damian Harris's is 100. You are now able. It's not even close. Draft the guy who's going to be their first and second down running back, who the team can give as much work to as they want in a contract year where they run him into the ground and then they don't re-sign him. And then next year, Ramondre takes over as the 1A. It's officially already too expensive to draft Ramondre Stevenson for me. And I like Ramondre. Really like his talent. Really like his skill set. If you can get Damian Harris 5 picks later, and that gap is probably going to widen with the news that James White is gone, give me Damian Harris every single time.
And a lot has been made about, Ramondre Stevenson's the new pass-catching running back for them now. I don't think so. If you look at what last year, yes, he is a bigger back with some pass-catching upside that we weren't projecting from him when he came out. But Damian Harris still had more receptions than him last season. 18 receptions to 14 receptions. Not a ton of difference. I still expect them to kind of split receptions down the middle, but it's not going to be like Ramondre Stevenson is now getting all the receptions and all the goal line work because he's the bigger back and all that. Like Damian Harris still had 15 touchdowns last year. Ramondre was great. He only had 5. Now, I expect some regression in both areas, in that area for both of those guys. Positive for Ramondre, negative for Damian Harris, but they should still end up. I mean, this offense isn't one that likes to pass in the red zone. They don't have the personnel for it. They're going to run in the red zone. So Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson could end up with 10 touchdowns apiece. Take the cheaper guy. What have we always said about New England Patriots running backs? The best value is to take the cheapest guy. The cheapest guy now is Damian Harris.
Is their starter.
That's wild.
Yeah, I know.
Yo, the fantasy community needs to chill, yo.
We're not talking about Uncle Stunkus, but as far as chilling out, take Harris. Let Ramondre go 10, 15 picks later, and take the dude who's actually going to start for them.
And Hunter, if you're out there, you're on the clock. But your next question, Uncle Stunkus, and that first one was a good one. I'm glad we were able to clear that one up.
That was a good thing to kind of go through.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that was news to me. I didn't know those ADPs had flipped at this point. That's wild. That's wild.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But
that
Uncle
that was before the James White retirement news.
All right. Yeah. Well, there you go. Capitalize on that.
Yup. Because it's going to grow. Take Harris.
And which two of these three between Javonte Williams, Leonard Fournette, and Mike Evans? The last two for me. In redraft for this season, I'd rather have Fournette and Mike Evans.
Redraft in at least half PPR, I agree. In standard, Javonte has a little bit more of an argument over Mike Evans. In Dynasty, obviously, Javonte, and then it's a toss-up. I think Evans is like a 28-year-old receiver. Fournette's a 26-ish-year-old running back. So, they're kind of in the same boat from that perspective as far as longevity. Maybe Evans has like one more year as a receiver, maybe. Javonte, obviously, in Dynasty. But for redraft this year, I want to believe that it makes sense to spend a third or, a pick around the 2-3 turn for Javonte, but it's hard to get behind that because there have been conflicting reports about what this backfield is going to look like from a workload perspective. Some people think Javonte is going to get 60 to 65% right away. Others say it's going to be that same even split that Melvin Gordon had last year. It's tough to, and so from that perspective, I'll just take Melvin Gordon 70, 75 picks later. and get a wide and I'll opt for say Fournette over Javonte, or a receiver who I know is locked into an every down role over Javonte. So yeah, Evans and Fournette.
Yep. Agreed. Cajun Spice for Dynasty half PPR. Would y'all rather have Benjamin, Nyheim Hines, or KJ Hamler? I'd rather have Nyheim Hines.
Yeah, Hines. How old is Hines? What, 25?
27. I think he might be 26, 27 now.
I don't think he's 27. He's 25. He'll turn, but he'll turn 26 in November during the season.
There you go.
No, I'd rather have Hines. So from that perspective, from the age perspective, I think Hines is about to have a nice little season.
Yeah, might have his best season as a pro.
I think he's got 40 catch upside in this offense. I think he's going to be utilized a little bit more than he was last year. The quarterback situation is a boost. It helps. Matt Ryan can check it down to running backs. Carson Wentz can't. Rest in peace, J.D. McKissick. I think Hines is going to have a decent little season, and you should be able to flip him for a second round pick at the end of this at the end of the season.
Yeah, and AP, yeah, Deshaun's wild for that one, yo. Deshaun is wild for that one, yo.
He's off his rocker, man.
I kind of want to know the context in which he let that fly.
Yeah, I didn't see. The news was broken to me here in the chat, and I haven't had the chance to dig into it. It's pretty funny. It's also very strange. Calling your shot. This is the opposite of that. Calling your punishment.
Oh man, weird. Alex Rojo league winner. I mean, you drafted him late enough to where what's the risk?
Yeah, the risk is he gets cut.
Yeah, but I mean,
no, I know there's no risk in the 14th round. At that point, there's no risk.
Yeah. I feel like he got back-to-back bad news on Rojo, so Ronald Jones, so Rojo, not Rojo, and that led to him just nobody wanted to draft him, nobody wanted to touch him, you know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, hey, if it all works out for him, you got good value there, and New Jeru's, who's that projection for? Is that
Claypool?
Is that Claypool? Yeah. Okay.
Honestly, that's a fair that is a fair projection for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no issues with that. 802. He had around he had 800 receiving yards in back-to-back
seasons. He had 800
seasons.
receiving yards in what was definitely perceived as a down / kind of bad season.
I think the optics played into that, though, because not only was it only 2 touchdowns instead of 11, he also had the bonehead plays.
That's what I was. Yeah, he kind of showed some immaturity issues last year. Oh, yeah, he had 860 last year.
Oh yeah, well, I ballpark. He was in the 800s.
I
wasn't reading 100 on that. He just he had
I thought you were
back
reading
800 yard seasons where it was around in the 800 range.
The difference being from his rookie season, he officially last year he started 13 games. In his rookie season, he technically only started 6 and had by 13 had more receiving yards. On 3 more catches. So yeah, relative to expectation, Claypool definitely had a down year last year, but at his ADP, I'll take 800 yards and 7 touchdowns or 860 yards upside for more than 2 scores with a quarterback who can actually throw it more than 10 yards down a field. I'm perfectly fine with taking a shot on Claypool this year. Perfectly fine.
And Riley VIP 18, good to see you again, man.
What's up, Riley?
Adam Thielen, steal of the draft in this new offense. What do you guys think? 24 touchdowns the last 2 years.
Yeah, man. He just caught another one. Literally, I saw it 30 seconds ago.
Yeah, it's on Twitter.
It just happened on my block. He wakes up and catches touchdowns. That's what Adam Thielen does.
He's got a little end zone and is just in
well,
every room he walks into. He's just like,
he's got his kids just lobbing him like little Nerf balls.
Yeah.
Touchdown. Yeah. Adam TD Thielen. So, yeah, I have been hammering Thielen in best ball in the 7th round since March. I think it's a phenomenal value. Yes, he's 32 years old. He ended last season on a whimper. Was it a high ankle sprain, or it was an injury that ended his season with the Vikings not playing for anything by with a couple of weeks to go. So that's the sour taste that people have in their mouths as far as what they've recently saw or did not see from Adam Thielen. 7th rounder, 32, 33 years of age. People are concerned that injuries are going to start to pile up. He's an older player. They have concerns. Fair. I'm not worried about that. If I drafted scared of injury, then I wouldn't draft. Adam Thielen is their red zone monster. No disrespect. I mean, Justin Jefferson is their everything monster. But Adam Thielen...
The new coach, now this is a quote, new coach Kevin O'Connell has embraced the ways Thielen can excel in his scheme, specifically in the red zone in particular.
Yeah, Thielen is going to remain a significant piece of this Vikings red zone offense. And so he's maybe a guy who also tops out at like 800, 900 yards. He's not a guy that you expect to get 1,000 yards. But he can score 12, 13 touchdowns.
Yeah, he's
absolutely.
Him and Keenan Allen are
I love Adam Thielen
in the same mold.
7th round.
Yeah, it's just one has had better QB play or more heralded QB play because Kirk Cousins has been good too.
Cousins has been solid, but Keenan went from Phillip Rivers to Justin Herbert, not too shabby. But also one is getting drafted at the top of the 3rd round and one is getting drafted in the middle of the 7th. So I think Thielen is the player in best ball this year I have the most exposure to across my different contests. I'll have to double check that, but I know it's up there. Fantastic value in the 7th round. Absolutely stellar.
No, he's going to be catching touchdowns all year. Again, yeah, I think he just
caught another one. Another one. He caught 2. Span of about 2 minutes.
That's on brand. We've seen him do it in games.
I know.
But we're at the bottom of the chat. Throw some more questions in the chat for us before we get out of here and watch some preseason. But there is one more guy in the thumbnail that I wanted to talk about. And I kind of waited on him selfishly so that I could talk about him without the risk of him being drafted in our members league. But that's Paris Campbell.
Oh, you're on the clock right freaking now.
Yeah. And
go ahead. Before you go, make him your pick.
No, I'm still choosing. I'm between him and Josh Palmer. I really have to see if I want to go for the stack or I have to decide between the two, and I'm probably going to be doing that while I'm watching some preseason.
Okay.
Just fair. But Paris Campbell, yes, he had some freak injuries the past few seasons. He's not injury prone. He's had freak injuries in back-to-back seasons. But he's only 25 years old. He has an 18.1 breakout age, not the stat that Nick and I run to, but still notable.
Yeah,
4.31
good to call
speed.
Out like or not outliers, but exceptional stats.
Yeah, I mean, some other players with great breakout ages, or Rondell Moore's up there, but Sammy Watkins, DJ Moore, then Sammy Watkins early in his career had showed some real promise. D-Hop is up there. There are some good wide receivers with low breakout ages. It is something to take note of. It's not the end all be all from a stat, as far as stats go, but it is notable. 4.31 speed for Paris Campbell. Now, even if he lost a little bit of that with the injuries, he's still probably running in the 4.4 range, which is still burner level.
Pretty
even if he loses 0.1% of or 0.1 of the speed coming off of 2 leg injuries. 6 foot, 4.31 speed when he came out, 18.1 breakout age, 2nd round draft capital. yes, Alec Pierce was drafted by this team in the second round, but it's been Paris Campbell who's been exclusively running with the first unit during minicamp.
Yep.
He was dealing with a hammy injury, so he was held out of this the last few training camp practices. But when healthy, and again, he is not injury prone, and he's not somebody who has dealt with soft tissue injuries in the past. So this hammy injury that he's dealing with, let's write it off as an outlier. He has a ton of upside, man. He has a ton of upside. And people are forgetting that he's going to be the number 2 for Matt Ryan, who, when the last time we saw Matt Ryan have a competent number 2 wide receiver at age 25, it was Calvin Ridley, and different wide receivers,
I'd say he was competent.
But in his age 25 season, he had 800 yards and I think 7 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Based on where you can draft Paris Campbell, I'm taking that all day. The burner in this offense, who was thought to be the heir apparent to T.Y. Hilton as the down the field burner for this offense, second round draft capital again. If he can stay healthy, that's all he needs to do is stay healthy with Matt Ryan. He can finally start to capitalize on the promise that he's shown, and he won't have to deal with number 1 coverage because Michael Pittman's the real deal across the field from him. So I really like Paris Campbell too. I just wanted to shout out Paris Campbell.
Got a lot of promise. Got a ton of promise. Just watching JJ Taylor rip through take a screen, go about 12, 13 yards. Go JJ Taylor.
Hey.
Also, apparently Kenny Golladay is like, and the Daniel Jones Kenny Golladay connection has been non-existent tonight. So,
well, duh.
Just reading on Twitter, apparently Kenny Golladay is in midseason form. Yikes. I had like a cup of coffee 24-hour period where I was like, Kenny Golladay, interesting, and then I was like, no.
Yeah, I was on that too.
For like a hot second, I was like, opportunity, lots of money. No. I'm gonna have to revise my draft plan. Whatever I wrote about him probably wasn't mean enough. As far as Campbell, yeah. I mean, you checked all the boxes. High pedigree as far as coming from Ohio State. High draft capital. Ohio State has churned out wide receiver talent recently over the past couple of years. Campbell has so far not quite joined those ranks because he has missed time to injury. This Colts offense needs somebody to step up. It feels like they're kind of almost banking on him at this point, because otherwise they are going to be relying on a rookie in Alec Pierce, which is not always the wisest thing to do. They're talking about T.Y. Hilton potentially. This might just be smoke and mirrors at this point, but they could reunite with T.Y. Hilton, who I love T.Y. I just don't know what he has left. Zach Pascal left as a free agent. Who else actually is in this Colts depth chart as far as wide receivers? Paris Campbell's got a huge opportunity. So Alex actually asked, that question about how much do we factor the offense in. I think we're expecting the Colts to be a good offense, but maybe not like the most stellar passing offense. But Paris Campbell is listed as a starter, where the depth options are Alec Pierce, Kiki Kuti, Ashton Doolin, Desmond Patman, Mike Strachan. Remember him? He's actually on the PUP list right now. DeMichael Harris. Like, Paris Campbell's got a wide open opportunity here and is dirt cheap as far as his ADP. It is as low. I think it's still, despite the good vibes around him so far in this offseason. Let me just confirm it just so I don't misspeak. I feel like it's around the 170 range. Maybe it's climbed up since then, since the beginning of the offseason. Yeah, well, I was right. 170 on the nose is his ADP. I mean, you're talking about spending a 15th round pick on a guy who should be the number 2 wide receiver on a pretty good offense.
Who has all the pedigree in the world. I mean, he had his breakout.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about Drake London and why we're coming around to him. And with respect to his breakout age, he had his breakout age season when he was playing with Michael Pittman, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Velus Jones. Paris Campbell had his breakout age season playing with Terry McLaurin across from him, with Dwayne Haskins at QB, RIP, and with J.K. Dobbins running for 1,400 yards in you know, in the games. But yeah, he's good.
He's a good player, just hasn't
he has the
happened
chance
for
to
him
be
yet because of
right.
injury.
He has the chance to be.
Yep.
Don't
I love
sleep
taking
on him.
shots on Campbell. Yeah, I love taking shots on Campbell. And again, Matt Ryan, we talked about, we talked a little bit about Denver a little earlier as far as expected passing volume. Matt Ryan has thrown for at least 600 pass attempts in every single one of his 15 seasons, except for, I think, 2 early in his career.
4,000 passing yards in 11 straight years prior to last year where he had nobody to throw to.
Draft Paris Campbell, except for you, right here. Don't you take Palmer.
Don't tell me what to do.
Palmer's ADP on Underdog, John, is like 40 picks higher than Paris Campbell.
Yeah, but I got the stack with Matt Ryan, so I think
don't care. I don't care.
Oh man, all right. But yeah, I just wanted to shout out the last guy that I wanted to talk about here. The last guy I wanted to bring up.
Let's see what Daniel Jones has here. Oh, he dumped it off to. Is that Gary?
Gary Busey? What?
Gary, yeah, number 23 for the Giants, Gary Busey. Brightwell is that Gary Brightwell, I think.
Their running back pick from last year. Yep.
Yeah. Just caught an 8-yard pass on first down. Good for that guy.
But Riley, Albert O is my late round tight end steal. What do you guys think? You guys listed a lot of tight ends, but left him off the list.
This one.
I really like Albert O. When he's playing in a good offense. Now Tim Patrick is gone, so they're going to have to use Albert O more. Noah Fant in this offense was the tight end 11 and the tight end 12, and that was with Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater throwing him the ball, and Matt Flacco for some time there 2 years ago. So,
Joe Flacco?
Yeah, not much. Yeah, I always do that. I'm sorry.
I was like, who's Matt?
I knew a dude named Matt Flacco once, so it always is just like whatever.
Joe's brother.
Yeah, but no, I mean Albert O. I've been vocal about him having top 12 touchdown upside, or top 12 TE upside. I'm whatever. He's got top 12 upside at the position. There you go. That's what I'm saying.
Bam.
And especially with Russell Wilson, who early in his career, if you remember, one of his favorite targets was Jimmy Graham, and when that connection was legit, Jimmy Graham was a top 3 tight end. Jimmy Graham has one of the best RASs over the past 20 years at tight end. And guess who also has a RAS above 9? That's a relative athletic score for anybody who's new here. And basically any Hall of Fame tight end that you can name outside of, probably 3 has an RAS above 9. Gronk, Kelsey, Gronk and Kelsey. But, Goddard, Hawkinson, Kittle, Pitts, all these guys that we want in fantasy, they all have RAS, relative athletic scores above 9. Albert O does too. Now he has the best quarterback of his career, and the targets are consolidated because Tim Patrick is gone, and and people might be worried about Greg Dulcich, and he might get some play this year, but I mean Albert O behind Noah Fant was catching 300 ending the season with 300 yards and a couple of scores, and it wasn't stopping Noah Fant from being tight end 11 and tight end 12 in back-to-back seasons. So Albert O should be fine. Tight end at the end of your draft, that is a a very good tight end sleeper to end up with.
The Giants starters are currently getting worked by the Patriots backups.
No Saquon, I'm guessing. But
no Saquon. I think Wandale's out there.
Yeah, no.
Galladay's out there.
No. Kadarius Toney.
Galladay's out there. He just caught like a little 4-yard pass on 3rd and 18.
Fake news.
So,
Galladay. Even when Galladay's playing, he's not playing.
Same old Giants.
But,
sorry, Nemo. Same old Giants.
Yeah.
Ooh, that was holding too in the worst way. They didn't call it.
Preseason.
Should be 3rd and 28 right now.
And AB, what's this question that you're hesitant to ask? Is it the Sakine DPJ?
There's a guy he's looking at in the 15th round, but he doesn't want to bring him up in case somebody snipes him.
Well, fair enough.
He's about 5 picks away from his pick. He doesn't want anybody laying in the weeds to take it from him.
Yo, Sad J. What's going on, man? You just accepted an invite to a standard league, which you usually don't play. Are there many players in a standard league where their projections change drastically versus a PPR league to y'all? All running backs get a boost.
I mean...
Or not get a boost. They get a boost. All running backs.
Well, I would say, a guy like Derrick Henry gets a boost. A guy like Alvin Kamara takes a bump back. And Austin Eckler even takes like a tick back. Past like PPR monsters at the wide receiver position are guys that are not as enticing. Keenan Allen is less enticing unless they are touchdown scorers. PPR monsters are a little less intriguing.
Yeah,
they're not
Riley,
getting those.
Nick Chubb standard boost. Yep.
Nick Chubb standard boost, absolutely. Guys that kind of have a split, like that dual workload where, they catch the ball as much as they run it, are not as enticing.
Damian
they're
Harris
still running.
Should absolutely be a target for you based off of our conversation
Harris
earlier.
is a good guy. Yeah. Harris is somebody who's good. Trying to think like Travis Etienne, maybe a little less intriguing. Ezekiel Elliott gets a boost. Trying to think of like PPR, like other than Keenan Allen.
Basically, whereas we're really proponents of going or advocates of going wide receiver heavy early on. If you miss out on the first 2 running backs, now it's kind of flipped on its head where in a standard league, I think I'm going running back deep into the first round, whereas I'm more liable to go Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs after Jonathan Taylor and CMC.
Yeah, Taylor, McCaffrey. I would put Henry as my RB3 kind of definitively in standard.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, then I'll take Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. But then a guy like Najee gets a boost. I know the vibes on him have been kind of, it's been 50-50, but he gets a boost in standard.
Najee Harris over Eckler, Joe Mixon over Eckler.
That might be the cutoff. Yeah. I might still take Eckler over Mixon.
But Aaron Jones falls a little bit because he should make most of his hay off of passes.
Right. I have been projecting that his catch totals go up this year, so naturally I would have to be a little less inclined to be interested in him in a standard league. DeAndre Swift, takes a slight tick knock down. Saquon gets a significant. Saquon is a back end first round pick, I would say.
But some of those middling running backs like Josh Jacobs, Devin Singletary, Damian Harris.
You mentioned Damian Harris.
They get a little bit of a boost. David Montgomery gets a little bit of a boost, even though it's not. It's ugly.
Yeah.
But those guys get a boost over the wide receivers that would normally be drafted in the same range.
Cordell Patterson stepped back. James Cook, as far as a late round running back target, step back. Nyheim
almost
Hines
off my
back.
board, really, in their standard league.
Yeah, Nyheim Hines step back. So you get the idea. We go on and on.
Yeah.
The last thing I guess I would say is at tight end, the emphasis on just finding somebody with legit, like solid weekly touchdown upside is even more paramount. So if you don't get Kelsey, and I guess I would say Andrews is maybe a little more interesting for me in standard than Pitts, just because Andrews has more touchdown upside.
Then wait.
Then wait.
Yeah.
Wait even later than you would on tight end in half PPR.
Yeah, and to Riley's point, QB position gets a little bit of a boost over some of those PPR wide receivers as well.
Yeah. So Keenan Allen is less enticing at the wide receiver position. I guess I would say maybe a guy like Deontay Johnson, slightly less enticing. So guys who you're expecting to catch the ball a ton, but they're, maybe their touchdown numbers are DJ Moore, probably like a slight down tick. So yeah, I feel like we've said a ton of names on either way, either side. You kind of get the idea. Pass catching running backs a little less enticing. PPR monsters at the wide receiver position a little less enticing, and the middling tight ends are like completely off the board for me. So yeah.
And AB, Nick Westbrook-Akine, or Donovan Peoples-Jones? Are you asking just because they both have 3 names? To me, I think I got to go Nick Westbrook-Akine because right now he's running with the ones.
Yeah, he
actual
seems to
quarterback
have a big boost. Yeah, he seems to have gotten a pretty significant boost with the offseason headline and developments so far. Does that mean Treylon Burks is dead, like dead on arrival? No, we've seen this type of stuff happen before, right? Where the vibes are terrible in training camp. And then it's like, oh, wait, he's just out there playing football. Like he's able to put up some numbers. We've seen this happen before. But Westbrook-Akine certainly has, you can't help but feel good about his chances to make an impact week 1.
Yeah. But no, I out of those guys that have 3 names, I would rather have Nick Westbrook-Akine. Now, the thing is, once Treylon Burks rises up the depth chart, you might barely see Akine. Whereas, DPJ will be the number 3 or number 2, depending on the week, with whatever quarterback is there for the Browns, whether that's Jacoby Brissett or Jimmy Garoppolo, who a report came out today, the Browns, if the Deshaun Watson situation, if he does get more than 6 games, they are looking to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, which would make me feel a lot better about all of the pass catchers for the Browns versus going with the Jacoby Brissett, obviously. And I am expecting that to come to fruition. I am expecting more than 6 games for Deshaun Watson. So I am now expecting the Browns to go out and get Jimmy G.
Yeah, I think my answer is kind of definitively DPJ.
Yeah, I think I just talked myself into DPJ too.
Well, to that, yeah. There's not a player that the Browns have of Treylon Burks' caliber where he could climb out of the hole that the offseason headlines have dug for him. Does that make sense? Whereas the Browns, DPJ should already be a part of their plans as far as their receiver rotation. Westbrook-Akine is maybe going to get some extended playing time, maybe to start the season out of some necessity. DPJ should just already naturally be working as part of their regular rotation, potentially as a consistent wide receiver 2 option there in a rotation with David Bell and maybe Anthony Schwartz. I would say DPJ.
Yeah, and just to jump down into the last pieces of the chat, or last comments in the chat here, and then I'll go back up and talk about Lamar Riley. But I don't really like the Treylon Burks comparisons to the Jamar Chase reports early on in camp and stuff, because we should have all known that, and anybody saying Jamar Chase can't catch the ball based off of what he did in college, we should have known those reports were overblown. Whereas the Treylon Burks situation is a legitimate health concern.
Right.
So they're not equal. Those concerns are not equal. Now, yes, we do have to temper any negative reports coming out, or positive reports coming out of training camp before even any preseason games have been played. But comparing the Jamar Chase situation to the Treylon Burks situation, two very different situations. One was legitimate camp news garbage, and where they're talking about he can't see the ball in the air without the stripes. Like, it was just super dumb. And then the other one is legitimate health concern.
This guy has asthma and has failed to get up to speed from a conditioning
Right.
perspective.
So they're not the same. I do just have to point that out. They are the two situations for both of those guys are not the same and not comparable to me. But yes, I talked myself into DPJ. Nick talked me into DPJ over at Kine. So
I guess what is kind of similar is it is kind of silly to hear. It's believable, I guess, or not. I guess it is believable to hear that DPJ or Treylon Burks is running the wrong routes in camp and lining up incorrectly. So similar. That is what is the somewhat. I agree with you about the health. The asthma is apples and oranges, but that type of stuff. That also feels like it very well could be overblown. Now, is Jamar Chase the significantly superior prospect and player? There's no way we could say anything other than yes. But Burks himself is a first-round pick with high expectations. It's not inconceivable that lining up wrong and running the wrong routes isn't going to kill Treylon Burks for the entirety of his rookie year.
I mean, he did miss the OTAs and minicamp and large swaths of training camp. So, he didn't miss training camp, but he's just OTAs. Getting up to speed versus the other people in the offense. Right. So, of course, he's going to make some mistakes like that, but he still has 4 weeks of preseason to make it up and to elevate himself into the offense there. So, even that is just kind of like, okay.
Silly.
Yeah.
But and he'll figure it out. He's 20 years old?
Yeah. He'll figure
21.
it out. He'll be all right. 21.
Like, lining up wrong, okay. Like, what? His foot was like a yard off the line of scrimmage? Like, all right, whatever.
Yeah. He'll get on track. He'll get on track. Or he won't. But regardless,
Yeah. That one is that is the headline that I would say a little bit more aligns with Jamar Chase can't see the ball.
Yes.
So, to that point, Nick Westbrook-Akine has that waiting in the wings behind him. There's nothing of that caliber behind DPJ.
David Bell is there, but and not the same caliber. Not the same caliber.
Yeah, different expectations as far as the player. But yeah.
And Riley VIP, I feel like Lamar Jackson will feel a little bit more pressure to run more now that he's in a contract year. Feel pressure to do more, does that make any sense? I think you're looking at this wrong. I think, honestly, if anything, he's going to feel more pressure to pass, to show the NFL again and again and again, because he seemingly has to continue to prove to everybody in the NFL that he's a good passer. There were more rumblings again this offseason that wide receivers didn't want to go to the Ravens because Lamar's not a great pass catcher and the offense holds wide receivers back and all that. There was still rumblings about that 4 years or whatever into Lamar Jackson's career. I think with the running backs coming back healthy, J.K. Dobbins specifically, that'll take the pressure off of Lamar Jackson to have to run. But I do think in when he is still working out his own contract. He doesn't have a lawyer. Him and his mom are operating as the contract negotiators with him and the Ravens. I think he's going to put more pressure on himself to pass more and to show he's not just an athlete at the position, even though that's obviously a huge skill set of his, a huge tool in his toolbox. So, but I think he might feel a little bit more pressure to do what he did last year, which was pass a lot more than he ever had in the past.
And he found success doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that bodes well for all the pass catchers in the offensive note.
If he has the opportunity to run, I mean, that's his natural. He can do that in his sleep. I mean, I know he can. I know he can throw the ball as well, but I don't think Lamar's ever going to feel pressure as it pertains to like, hey, the play is breaking down. I'm going to do what I do best. Or it's a designed run because I'm Lamar Jackson. Like,
yeah.
Nah, I think he's going to play his brand of football and get himself paid. Unanimous MVP, led the league in touchdown throw. Like, he deserves a fat contract.
Yeah, he does.
And I think he's going to get it.
But, hey, I think we're at the end of the chat. I think some people are dipping out to watch some of these preseason games. And I, for one, do want to start tuning into some of these preseason games, even though we're probably in the end of the second quarter for the...
Tyquan Thornton just caught a touchdown.
Okay, good for him. I wish I would have seen that. But with that in mind, we are going to shut down the stream a little bit
early today for preseason.
So thank y'all for chilling with us today. Thanks for all the questions. A lot of engagement today, so that was a lot of fun. I hope you guys have a great weekend. We will be back here Tuesday, 6 p.m. EST as usual. And
overreacting to week one.
Overreacting to week one of fake
the
football.
Yeah. Can't wait to overreact. I'll do a couple last minute plugs one more time. John, appreciate the shout out at the beginning, but if you haven't already seen it in the description of this video, I'll just go link by link. The first link, information on perks about becoming a member of this channel. We just instituted a new kind of entry level where if for 99 cents a month, you can join our members only streams. We will stream we stream for the members on Wednesdays once during Wednesdays during the season or during the off season, Wednesdays and Thursdays during the season itself. So that is one level. You can go one level above that and join leagues with us. So if you're interested in becoming a member of the channel, there's some more details there. The second link in the description is my draft plan, is the channel's draft plan. I think it's a pretty constructive way to approach your redrafts this year. So let me know what you think.
It's awesome content. Go and get it if you haven't. Just throwing that out.
And then last but not least, if you are not already, you can join the Discord. That is the third link in the description of this video. Questions, topics of conversation, whatever you want. You do not have to be a member to join. Keep the conversation going over there and talk fantasy anytime, and we will answer whenever we can. So,
absolutely.
That's
But
it for me.
Thanks, y'all, for tuning in. Again, we're gonna have a little bit a much heavier schedule in season come week one. Instead of streaming twice a week for the general public and once a week for the members, we're gonna be streaming 5 times a week. Tuesday, Wednesday for the members, Thursday before the games with everybody, and then once the game starts, if you're a member, you have the option to watch the Thursday night game, or at least half of it or some portion of it, with me. Saturday night at 6 p.m. EST, we go live and do answer start-sit questions for everybody prior to the Sunday games, slate of games. And then on Sunday at 10 a.m. EST, 3 hours before kickoff, we go for 3 hours right up until kickoff, answering all questions as well. So if that is of any interest to you guys, definitely come through on either day or even both, and get your fantasy advice to help to get you set up weekly for 18 weeks of what should be some real entertaining football. And then we turn it around, and the next Tuesday we're back with the general public again. So keep that in mind. But again, thank you for everything today, everything this week. Looking forward to this football season ramping up. Hope y'all have a great weekend, and we will be back with you guys next week.
Well, before we go, we gotta say welcome, Riley. as a starter level member of the
Yo,
channel.
Riley. All right, man. All right. Hey, we'll get you set up in the Discord if you're not set up in the Discord already.
Yeah, go ahead and join the Discord too.
And then, hey, we might be able to have a 14-team league with
might
Riley and Xavier joining the ranks.
Who wants to do a 14-teamer?
Ooh, yes. All right. Thank you for joining, Riley. Much appreciated.
Is starter the level that is eligible? Is that it, or is starter?
Starter is league eligible. If the practice squad level is just the listener league on or listener
okay.
only.
Practice squad is the practice squad. Okay, I like it. Practice
so he
squad
joined
is for the
with the he can join a league with us. Absolutely. Thank you for joining, Riley.
Appreciate it. Welcome aboard. Feel free to join the Discord as well. We'll get you set up with access to the member channels in there as well.
Third link.
We gotta look into a 14-teamer before the season starts. But we'll enjoy the weekend
third link,
first.
right? Third link in the description.
Third link is the access to the Discord if you're interested in that, Riley. But yeah, we'll see what we can do about getting a second league put together.
Absolutely. And
thanks for joining up.
If any of y'all haven't checked out the Isaiah Pacheco video that's out, and you want to know a little bit more about Isaiah Pacheco, check that out too. But just a little plug. But hey, thanks Riley. Thanks everybody. We'll see y'all next week. Have a great weekend.
Yep. Have a great weekend.